everyone to this masterclass. Today we are talking to 4 dancers. They are all based in the Southwest and they've been doing all sorts of imaginative, innovative, brilliant work during lockdown. They're here to tell you all about how they've been thinking on their feet. And I have for you today Richard Chappell, Sophie Northmore, Kay Crook and Johnny Autin. They're all 4 going to give you a short presentation and talk about what they've been getting up to, and then we're going to have a discussion and get into the nitty-gritties of actually what makes a dancer the adaptable creature that they are. First up, we're going to hear from Johnny Autin, and he's here to talk a little bit about his adventures in lockdown.
Hello, Susie. Hello, everyone. My name is Johnny. I am the creative director of Autin Dance Theatre, which is a touring professional dance company based in Birmingham since 2013. I am associate artist with DanceXchange and Midlands Arts Centre, MAC, in Birmingham. And little presentation of the stuff that we do with the company. We have a lot of education work, obviously in schools and community centers. We're touring some indoor shows, some outdoor work, and we work in unusual and digital spaces now. Thank you, COVID. We've all upskilled ourselves in terms of digital work and film and VR, AR. So yeah, that's how we've kind of been thinking on our feet. The work that we were doing pre-pandemic was very much kind of traditional touring dance company, going into schools and to community centers to deliver face-to-face workshops, dance workshops, physical theater workshops, and touring indoor and outdoor shows in festivals and communities, some international dates, which was quite interesting. And because of the pandemic, we had to rethink everything. So there was a massive pause. There was a massive stop. There were hundreds commissions, applications, funding applications to try to survive. 96% of them being unsuccessful. There was a great reset in how we engage with new communities, how we deliver work that is what the audience, the participants, the public need. And few beautiful things came out of it. So I'm gonna name quite a few. We moved obviously all our educational program online, and with the schools that we were engaging, we ended up finding this great way of filming, pre-recording classes, shorter dance and movement sessions, either in our living room or in a car park somewhere, and filming one workshop leader and getting really good at it by the end of the first lockdown, filming our activities, editing it, saving it on Dropbox, and then sending it to schools. And that's how we've been managed to keeping the education work alive. Some of the schools were still open for children of carers and frontline workers. So they were really grateful to have an activity that was arts and cultural based and movement and well-being sessions. So that was something that kept us busy at the beginning. We've been thinking creatively on and researching at home with a tiny little puppet, a large-scale outdoor show called Out of the Deep Blue, with a sea giant that is 4 meters tall, operated by 5 puppeteers. And it's a story around empathy and compassion, and when the human and the natural world kind of meet. It's epic. We're currently rehearsing it now and touring it across dozens of outdoor festivals around the UK. It's a pretty epic show. It's magical. It's for young people and their families. And yeah, and I'm really grateful that we actually got to have that time to research when we were in lockdown to find out more about the art form of puppetry, and also the character development, and more about climate change and the emergence, the biodiversity crisis, so all these environmental issues, to really digging into the research, which is sometimes that when we're a dancer, we don't actually have necessarily the capacity to do quite a lot of reading and researching and talking and watching and listening. So that was kind of a little bit of a silver lining of the first and second lockdown. We've come up with community projects. We've come up with a huge flash mob in the city center around Birmingham over the summer, a kind of project where we involve different community groups and young people in primary schools and older people in care homes. So this intergenerational project, which is called Big Brum Boogie. And one last thing I wanted to say is, as a community of dancers in Birmingham, we got tighter through lockdown. We really built this connection, this a lot more than if we would all have been touring and doing our own thing. So there was this year when we all got together to support what we call Brum Pro Class, which is the professional development class program with different partners around Birmingham. So there's DanceXchange, there's ACE Dance and Music, there's Birmingham Dance Network, Autin Dance Theatre, and several independent artists that just get together and pull their resources together so we could keep the pro classes, and we offer them for free at the beginning and then on a very subsidized fee on a membership afterwards. So yeah, we got tighter, we got together, and now the program is very successful and flourishing. And we already had a program in class, but doing it online just gave us that kind of, okay, we can still connect, we can still socialize, and that was really beautiful. We've also been thinking about Commonwealth Games that's coming in 2022 in Birmingham, and what project we could be a part of in Birmingham. So quite a lot of admin, not as much dancing as we would have liked, but stronger connection despite it being remote. That's kind of what's been happening for us.
Thank you, Johnny. That was brilliant. I love lots of rush of information and stuff that's going on. That sounds really excited about the Commonwealth as well, about the Commonwealth Games. A chance for the live arts sector to connect with sport. I think there's a really interesting way forward as well, isn't it, for public engagement? So brilliant. I look forward to finding all about that. We're going to follow up now your presentation with a short film or a short clip from some of the work that you've been getting on with. And then we'll have an open discussion with all of the panelists. Thank you. Welcome to the masterclass, Richard.
Hi everyone, thanks Susie for introducing us, and it's lovely to be here to kind of share and reflect on my learning and my colleagues and collaborators kind of problem solving and navigation of the last couple of years. It's been a really formative time and I guess a transformative time in how we have approached our practices and how we've approached engaging with people and having experiences with people, whether that's community members that have been parts of our programs, or whether it's been audiences or potential collaborators. So I am an independent choreographer whose my ensemble, Chappell Dance, is predominantly based out of Devon, specifically Exeter and Torbay, but we kind of spread ourselves around. At the start of the pandemic, one thing that we considered was the how our decisions at that time would carry weight that would go way past the conclusion of this experience that we're all facing as a society. The 2019 was a really formative year for RCD. We established ourselves more as a company with a governance structure. We brought in staff that kind of supported my work and my research practice and our performance work. And suddenly we kind of had to take a few steps back in terms of how we built momentum for our work. But at the same time, we had a sense of responsibility. You know, there were dancers that had worked with us for around 5 years. There were collaborators which we regularly commissioned. And I wanted to ensure that those people were supported. I wanted to ensure that our values as artists and as employers kind of shined through in all of our decision making. And to do that, we kind of said, well, in 5 years' time, when hopefully all of this is a thing of the past, can we look back at our decision making and know that we did the very best thing that reflected ourselves at that time? Whether or not it was, you know, the right or the best thing to do is, it's obviously for everyone, it's been incredibly hard to know and predict. But in terms of our values and our morals as a company, or my values and morals as an artistic director, I wanted to look back and know we did the best thing that we could. So for me, that's about support for dancers. It's about maintaining connection with freelance artists and building a support structure where they know that their best interests are at the heart of our decision making. So we made sure that kind of they were paid, you know, very practical things like that. We made sure that they were paid for their full length of contracts, even when lots of things were cancelled. And then we thought a lot about their durability and the support structures that they needed to stay healthy. So my rehearsal director, Charlie Britton, is also a medical practitioner. He's a paramedic and a physiotherapist. And I talked to him a lot about what it meant to give them both health and financial support. So we made a care plan for them and dedicated funds that we had from the Limbury Trust to support the dancers to train whenever they could, whether that was kind of a gym membership when gyms reopened, or whether it was for open dance classes, either kind of online or in person, or whether it was actually just a bit of cash to kind of support their daily expenses, which meant they could prioritize time to dedicate to their health. We then also made our own kind of fitness and health plans for them to support them to be stronger. Those were through kind of consultations with Charlie. And then we also did a creative retreat to bring our dancers to a valley in Wales where we all kind of stayed in the countryside together, and we started research and development for a new piece, very much kind of through improvisation and creative kind of collaboration in some fields which we had access to. And it was never really particularly content focused. It wasn't a process which had a desired outcome. It was more just to touch base with them creatively and to help them unpack emotionally the experiences of the first kind of 7 months of a pandemic. And for me as a leader, that was a really formative time, because as a self-producing artist, I've always prioritized doing things. I've always prioritized making work, touring work, presenting work, leading a participatory program. And it was a time when we kind of reassessed our priorities, and our priorities with the people that we worked with. So it was about doing things that maybe didn't have tangible gains for us in terms of content, but they had, they carried weight, and they had legacy in terms of the relationships we were forming and the ways that we were supporting the people that were most representative of my practice. You know, I'm not a dancer, which I don't perform in my work anymore. So the people that I have really close collaborative relationships with that perform my work are really vehicles for my self-expression. So they're the people that in the last kind of year and a half, I felt most conscious of and have needed to direct my energies mostly towards as a company. I think the other side of that is more of a social responsibility, where we've looked at the communities that we are kind of embedded in and looked at realistically what we could do with the money that we had, to not overpromise, and to also just to contribute towards other organizations' programs to kind of uplift the sector. We made a film program, which was part of a big online outdoor initiative that we did to get people outside and moving through workshops, and to also make films that were representative of our values and beliefs as artists, and how dance can fit into well-being and be transformative for people in times of real kind of turbulence and trauma. For me, it was really important that those programs were intergenerational, included kind of a range of different people's ages, but were also primarily safe. So we made a film which was shot in people's gardens, where everyone could be really distanced and be outdoors and find ways to connect and kind of shine through real kind of values of togetherness. So yeah, it was a way for us to stay connected with people, let people know that they are still in our hearts, I guess, and to find really, I guess also to show community and show how we are stronger when we are expressing ourselves together, but also to really kind of break down, I'd say to a certain degree, boundaries, but that we have put in place as a sector to try and keep people safe, which I totally understood and stood behind. But I had a yearning to be with those people in new and kind of hopefully quite innovative ways, so that they weren't unforgotten, I guess. That was a real priority for me. Obviously, kind of engaging with digital audiences was a way for us to show the Arts Council that we were still reaching people, and a way for us to still maintain kind of a flow of collaboration with people, and to engage with audiences in kind of new ways. We've done a few films before, but we produced 4 films over the course of autumn 2020 to spring 2021, which were in very different contexts to one another. They also kind of brought out different facets of the menu of collaborators that we kind of love to work with. We put a full stop on a piece called Still Touch, which we made for a festival at the Royal Opera House in 2018 and toured for a couple of years. And it was a collaboration with the sculptor Anna Gillespie. And Anna and I had always talked about making something cinematic that was dramaturgically within the same realm as our stage work together. So it opened up opportunity for us to kind of invest in that after a lot of shows of that piece were cancelled. It gave us a way to kind of find a resolution of that piece and a way for us to say goodbye to it with a film which in some ways is timeless, whereas stage shows always have some element of ephemerality to them. Another piece was a real creative interest to me. I collaborated with Saoirse Anton, who's a creative writer and also the company manager of RCD, to mentor me in writing some poetry. I've always been really interested in poetry, but I've never really dug deep into writing it or had the self-confidence to kind of share what I've written. So we made a film which was based around a poem that I wrote, which she mentored me to kind of write. And then I worked with a couple of dancers to make some kind of physical interpretations of that poem. The piece was called See Yourself Drift, and the intention was always to send it out to schools to encourage young people to write their own poetry and make their own dances and shoot it on their phones. And that's led to a schools workshop program, which actually starts next week across Devon, which I'm really looking forward to kind of kicking off and seeing what these people have made and see what interpretations they've had to those words, how that's prompted them to make their own writing. And I guess the other kind of thing just to round off that we've done and that we've found in this time is just trying to find legacy, all of this learning that we've had, all of these reflections that we've had. I wanted to find a way to that to be encapsulated in a production. So through our associateship at Exeter Northcote, we've been making a new kind of full-length work called Infinite Ways Home, which is kind of, it's a big kind of trippy vortex of togetherness and rave and older history from kind of Celtic culture and Druidic practice, all kind of blended into one kind of hopefully quite pulsating experience. There's live music, there's 5 dancers, there's visuals we've commissioned, and it's a piece that's about, it's called Infinite Ways Home, and it's a way for 6 people who have experienced trauma. We've all experienced a degree of trauma, who find a connectivity together which redefines their sense of home as being with each other instead of a geographical location. And it's a piece that I kind of shaped pre-pandemic, so it's not really reactive to the pandemic, but I think the situation that we've found ourselves in, anything that is made can't help but be seen with that lens for the next few years in some capacity, in some way, even if it's just touch or kind of momentum. So yeah, that's I guess that's what we did, and it's all kind of come into one, really.
Thank you, Richard. It sounds like you've had a really interesting journey during lockdown. And what I found most interesting was that you were talking less about sort of outcomes and products and more about just finding ways to connect and look after the dancers and find ways for yourself to develop other creative pathways. So really great. We'll slot your film that you've provided us with in now so that the audience can see what you've been getting up to. And then after that, we will hear from Crook all about her work that she's been doing during lockdown.
Thank you.
So next up in our panel of discussion of dancers is Kay Crook. I'm going to invite her to join me on the screen. Hey, here she is. Hi, Kay. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about what you've been getting up during lockdown and what you've had to pivot with, change, think on your feet about, what the surprises and challenges have been. I'll hand over to you.
Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Kay Crook. I'm a freelance dance artist and I'm also the artistic director of Chhaya Collective, which is a female-led contemporary dance company working between Devon in the UK and Bangalore in India. I established Chhaya Collective when I was working in India in 2013, and I've been working between UK and India for the past 8 years. Obviously, the pandemic slightly grounded that, but we've been able to go online digitally. I'm also a dancer for State of Emergency Dance Theatre and Heather Warren Dance Company. So I'm going to talk a little bit kind of personally about my journey through the pandemic. There's lots of different elements that come into it, but I'm thinking there might be a few people watching this that might relate to some of the obstacles that might have come up, and also some of the joys that have come from this, as Richard said, this quite transformative process. So I'm completely freelance. So when the pandemic first hit, all of my work was cancelled. At the time for Chhaya Collective, we were planning a tour for Chhaya's work, which is called Chaos, which celebrates female empowerment and coming together as a collective and a community to overcome adversity. So it's very apt. But yeah, we had a tour cancelled for so autumn 2020 and spring 2021. We were writing our Arts Council bid for that to get some funding to support it. And obviously pandemic hit, that was cancelled, and we couldn't then submit our Arts Council application. So that was quite a big hit initially because it takes so much work to kind of put these projects together, to book a tour and to write these applications. So at that point, I did kind of shut my laptop for a little bit and take a step back. I was also having quite a difficult time at home in my personal life. So I just decided to completely step back and live day to day, especially because at that time we just didn't know what was happening each day. And so I found that just being in the present moment and doing what made me feel good there and then was the most important. So I danced outdoors quite a lot. I found like little spaces, little green spaces where I could just put some music on, I could dance, I could journal, made little dance films on my phone. I also did a lot of yoga, so much yoga and a lot of fitness stuff. So that was kind of my first phase of lockdown. Then kind of obviously as things settled, I started to look at the potential of delivering sessions online. I run a youth company called Chhaya Youth Dance and had a responsibility to them to make sure I was delivering classes. I've never been very technical with like online stuff. So I can't tell you how many YouTube tutorials I watched to try to understand Zoom. And I ordered some wireless headphones, and also I was in my lounge here and I've got carpet. So I had to order like vinyl matting, which looked like wooden flooring. And I kind of covered half my lounge in that, and that was my dance studio. And that was supported by the kind of Dance in Devon emergency funding, which was amazing. So then I started delivering classes for Chhaya Youth online. I was a little bit nervous beforehand, as I think so many dance artists were, you know, delivering classes online. But as soon as I did the first one, I felt like my identity came back, and I felt so inspired and energized. I just wanted to do more. So I started organizing kind of more sessions with Chhaya Youth, and I was uploading kind of creative packs on YouTube for them so that they could download these videos, take them outdoors and do kind of dance creative engagement with nature outdoors. Just also for their own mental health and like just keeping, you know, checking in with each other through these creative projects and also through the live classes. And then I started getting more requests from other professional artists to deliver online sessions. So I came up with my energy cleanse sessions, and they were all to do with kind of, again, being in the moment, a lead follow class. So rather than having to learn a phrase and kind of, perform it in the space, which sometimes could be really frustrating, I found it really challenging to do that. And it wasn't the same for me as being in the studio. So I wanted something immersive that people could throw themselves into and kind of almost forget where they were, and it to be cardiovascularly, physically challenging. So that was actually really great. I started doing that. It was also great for me because it made me kind of engage, and it made me deliver something, which then made me more proactive in other areas of my working life. Another thing that came out of it is, of course, I connected with friends, colleagues in India, which I just hadn't even crossed my mind delivering online classes to connect with, Indian dancers and friends. So that was brilliant. A lot of them came to my classes, and there's some people I hadn't seen for a couple of years. And then from that, I got in touch with some old colleagues over there, and I started delivering some Zoom sessions, but for some more rural communities. So I had some people engaging outside, getting the workshops on their phone. And so that was like that was a learning curve for sure, like trying to work out all the kind of the technical obstacles around that when Wi-Fi signal and everything's not good. But amazing that you can use these digital dance forms to connect that widely, to people like in rural India. And then, so I was doing a lot of online teaching, a lot of Zoom. And so to kind of counter that, I started working at my friend's organic veg farm. So that was to be with real people, to be outside, to be connecting with nature. And it helped me then introduce more balance back into my life, and enjoy my, Zoom teaching more, because I was able to then be outside and be with real people. I don't know how good at it I was, but I enjoyed it anyway. So that really helped me through that time. And then as we moved into autumn 2020, things opened up a little bit more. There was a lot of live teaching. I covered head of dance at a local college. So I was in the studio. I just felt so lucky to be in the studio and be teaching people live. And I loved it more than I would have loved it before lockdown, because I just appreciated every part of it. And then during that time, Chhaya Collective, we got funding from Peninsula Dance Partnership, Dance in Devon and Pavilion Dance, to take one of our works, which is called Hymnos. It's a duet. I wanted to start developing it for outdoor performance, because it seemed like that's the kind of the route a lot of people are going down due to obviously restrictions and theatres being closed. So we were offered a residency at 101 Outdoor Arts. So we went there and we stayed on site and used the studios. And I was able to be with the Chhaya Collective dancers, a couple of them again. And again, just absolutely loved that. I loved exploring, something new, because I haven't really gone down the outdoor performance route yet. And also without the pressure of needing to have a product at the end of it. It was all kind of, experimental, finding new pathways, and just like bringing a lot of questions into the studio with us. And so that's kind of set a journey that we will probably follow then, from this point on and next year. And again, a huge learning process. So then the next phase is kind of this year. And again, obviously we had quite a strict lockdown again. And so during that time, I did a producing course at 101 Outdoor Arts. I've done a mindfulness course. I've been doing business coaching and life coaching. I've started to create a business plan for Chhaya, and I've started making plans to open up another youth company and find new ways to have to create new income streams coming into Chhaya. Again, it's funny that it's been in such different stages, and I don't feel I would have been at all in the right headspace to do that in the first lockdown, because of things that were happening in my personal life. So I really appreciate the kind of the journey that I've come on, and now, having the opportunity to really develop personally and professionally in this route. So now I'm not able to work with my producer because of the lockdown, so I'm self-producing. So I'm currently writing our bid for the Chhaya Chaos and Hymnals tour, spring 2022 and autumn 2022, which is really exciting. I'm very close to submitting that. Again, that's been a huge learning process as well. And really excited to say that we are going to be, Chhaya Collective are going to be company in residence at Pavilion Dance Southwest 2021-22. So again, they've been so supportive and incredible for both myself personally and Chhaya Collective over this journey, as have Dance in Devon. And I don't know if I would be at this stage really without the support of both of those organizations. And so now, it's a lot of planning for next year, kind of a lot of hope and anticipation for getting, you know, back on tour, back in the studio with the dancers. And, you know, Chhaya Collective, we've got six dancers and 3 live musicians and a big creative team as well. So I just can't wait to see all of them again. Doing loads of live teaching, thrown back in the deep end, teaching in schools, colleges, universities, but absolutely loving it and appreciating everything so much more than before. So yeah, stay tuned. You can go on our website to find out, you know, Chhaya dates and things as they come out towards the autumn.
Thank you, Kay. Again, really nice just to find out what's been going on in your life really over the last 18 months. And I think it's interesting that both you and Richard have touched on this fact that, oh, if we can't dance in the studio, we'll just go outside.
Yeah,
like it was an instant thought. It happened sort of straight away, which is lovely. And to hear that sort of the struggle having to start to work from home and dance from home, and how you kept that work-life balance. I know that one of our participants has got a question that we'll add to the discussion at the end about actually how did you manage that, turning your home into your office. Thank you very much, and we'll make sure that your clip is played right now so everyone can see what you're getting up to.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. The gorgeous film from Chhaya Collective and Kay Crook there. Next up, we have Sophie Northmore from the panel, who's going to talk to us a little bit about her adventures during lockdown. Nice to see you again, Sophie. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sophie Northmore. I am a professional dance and circus artist. I've been working as a freelancer for the last 7 or 8 years now. And throughout lockdown, I've just been pushing further into that journey. So it's been quite a mixed 1.5 years, as I'm sure it has been for most people. I wear a couple of different hats as a freelance performer. I work for Jolie Vienne and Many Hands, and within my own work, I work as a dancer for Sophie Northmore Dance Circus, and also a Let's Dance Circus company within a duo and some group work. So when the pandemic hit, I was due to do a contract as a freelancer with Mimbra, which is an all-female circus company. And with Jolie Vienne, we had some tours sort of booked throughout the whole summer. So when everything hit, that was all cancelled. And I had just moved to a new city. So I had to sort of figure out how to navigate a new place of home at a time when everything was closed and I didn't have as many contacts at that point. So that was quite an interesting journey. the company which I was due to work with were holding sort of morning classes every day, which was great. So it meant that I could get up and do class as I would have done normally, but online. I'm sure, like everyone else, I had a sort of a small corridor worth of space that I could utilize and use to do sort of handstand training and dance classes and HIIT. So that was an interesting experience, trying to see how you could use small spaces to be able to continue doing what we do. So following that, I started to explore outdoors and how I could both train and look at what I could create within the environments which were sort of open to us to be in at that time. So going to parks and using garden spaces and different outdoor spaces just to explore, doing sort of dance improvisations and also some acrobatics-based work. And I work within a duo, so I was able to bubble with the partner that I work with, which is Sam, and we do stuff within a Let's Dance Circus company together, which was great. We bought some judo mats and were able to take them to the park and give people sort of mini performances just by going and doing training in outdoor spaces, which was nice. We managed to sort of speak to people from afar who would come and sort of be like, oh, what are you doing? And oh, that was really cool. And just having sort of conversations, introducing people to both dance and circus, which they might not have seen unless they are sort of walking their dog or doing something in the park around us. So that was quite a cool experience to introduce yourself to a new audience group at that time. And then from that, we developed Into Utopia, which was a piece that we developed on a sofa, looking at how we could bring sort of the inside out and the outside in. We placed the sofa in the garden and created a 10-minute work, which showed at the Plymouth Fringe Festival in 2020, which was just a really nice experience to be creative at a time where sort of the theatres were still closed and different places were closed. So we created a online piece, which was then able to be shown at that stage, which was a really nice experience for us to do. And then later, as we came into sort of the more summer time of 2020, I managed to connect with 5 other like dance and circus performers to create a collective called Many Hands. And that was really great because we were able to start putting stuff together. All of us normally are in different places, so we don't get to connect so much, but because everyone was still at home generally or able just to go outside, we were able to connect together as a group of 6 and start looking at how we could sort of collaborate at that stage. And we looked at how we could develop sort of outdoor works, which led us on to create a sort of comedic swimming pool piece just as a bit of fun. At that stage, we thought that people needed something just to laugh at and enjoy, and we developed a piece which was acrobatics within an outdoor swimming pool which had no water in. And we had some really good responses to a cabaret piece which was just there to have for people to have fun and enjoy. And within that collective, in November, we went to Wales and did a R&D to start looking at how we could create more as a group of 6 of us and as a collective, which has actually led us on to create 2 pieces. We developed an online piece for the Invisible Circus Cabaret, which was shown in April 2021, looking around proximity and perspective and how you could utilize different proximities with a camera, with a GoPro camera, to show a view on acrobatics that you wouldn't normally get to see. So sort of a 3-man tower with a camera panning up and over, and just perspectives of the face in movements where you wouldn't normally get to be that close as an audience member. So we were exploring how you could use film in order to see a different point of view to what you would normally get. And that came directly from the fact that we weren't able to be having sort of face-to-face audiences, and we wanted to see and to show sort of a positive to creating online work at that time and at that stage. Yeah, and then sorry, so many different like little bits and bobs to let you know about this time. And then in March 2021, myself and my duo partner within Autin Dance Circus company made a sort of follow-up creation of our sofa piece that we'd shown at the Plymouth Fringe called Benchmark, and that was an exploration of a bench setting in a park, exploring how you could use that for dance and circus using a camera. We made a new collaboration with a filmmaker called Danny Albone, and he explored how we could use the camera to show views of what we were doing from perspectives that sort of highlighted what we were doing in different ways, and that was shown as part of the Grounded Circus Cabaret at that time. And then finally, within our collective of Many Hands Circus, we've just received Arts Council funding. So looking forwards, we are going into sort of a creation period in August 2021, and we'll develop an outdoor show which will be shown in Cheshire, in Penley Park, in Cornwall, and in Bristol Circus City in October 2021. So looking forwards, we are going into the creation of that fairly shortly, and which is great because that was a creation, a collaboration which happened due to lockdown. So real positive from having all been stuck in the same place at the same time. Yeah. Oh, I've missed out one part. I'm really sorry. I had like a row of notes. I also created a dance solo which was shown at the Barbican a couple of months ago now, called On the Feet of Good News, which was an outdoor dance solo developed on a beach in Wales, just exploring where we put our hope and where we put our hope in times of trouble, which came directly from the pandemic and was supported by the Peninsula Dance Partnership, which was a really great time just to explore outside and create upon that topic.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you very much, Kate and Richard as well for their sort of presentations today. We're going to show Sophie's film footage now for you to have a look and see what she looks like in action and what they've been making this lockdown. Excellent, thank you. We're now going to bring all of our panelists back to the screen. So if I can ask you to all to switch on your videos, we're going to have a bit of a discussion for 10-15 minutes about the experiences that we've all had. And I wondered if I could invite the panelists to talk about anything that they felt they connected with from each other's stories, or anything that's cropped up that they wanted to discuss as a group. I found it very interesting that we've all obviously gone for outside, but we've also gone for the extreme as well of technology. We've sort of been exploring the two ranges of practice fairly easily and fairly adaptably within our practice. Anything else that people have noticed or they would like to talk about?
I think there was something that Kay mentioned about connecting with people that she had completely disregarded the possibility of before, like people in India, people that you can't tangibly be in a room with pre-using Zoom. I resonated with that because I think there's a degree of kind of transference that we have on Zoom where you can feel like you're simulated into a room with people on the other side of the world, and perhaps the only thing that might be different is that it's dark outside where they are and it's light where you are. The other thing for me was kind of thinking about who have you not given time and space to, and how can something like Zoom make that possible and make it much more personal experience than perhaps a couple of emails. And so yeah, I resonated with the opportunity to connect with people, and to a degree, I think Kay, you did a lot more effort and did it a lot better than me in terms of transforming your home into a workplace. We broke a few plants, yeah, but I resonated with the effort of that, but you did it better.
Yeah, I kind of felt I had to. It was just like, I just need some space. I'm quite lucky. I've got quite a big lounge, but what people didn't see was literally all of my furniture just pushed up one end of the lounge. So yeah, but no, it was kind of, I don't know how, it just happened. And as soon as I had that space, it kind of like, it was like an exhale, like, okay, this is, even though it's just a small little mat, it was like, even, in terms of doing yoga and things, it was like almost like a separate space in my mind for me to train or just do whatever I needed to do. But yeah, I think on the topic of connecting with people, and like making sure we're connecting to different groups of people because everyone's in such different circumstances. And I think now maybe the pandemic's highlighted that for a lot of people, not just in our industry, but just across our communities, that we need to strike this balance. Because even now I'm leading one Zoom session a week now. And that's for a group of people that actually prefer to have it online, and that works really well. And because of that, and because everyone's there because they want to be there, because they enjoy this online working, it's really joyful. I love live teaching and I will never replace live teaching for anything, but it's striking that balance so that we can enable ourselves to reach out to different people and different communities, different access needs in terms of all sorts of stuff. But again, obviously being able to have live classes where people don't have access to Wi-Fi and things like that, or downloadable videos so that people, when they do have Wi-Fi, can download it, take it home, take it outside. It's just opened up a lot of kind of questions that I would never have considered before.
Anything you want to add, Sophie, to that?
That sounds great. I had a similar thing in connecting to different classes that I would normally not have the chance to, and in different countries in a similar way. But in terms of some collaborations actually happened which wouldn't have been able to happen, which was really cool. I ended up being part of a BBC Three project with Mimbra, which was lots of different people in different places, and everyone recorded it separately and then it came together. And some elements were in unison, which obviously you weren't all together doing it. You just had to film yourself doing the pieces, and then it was all put together, which was really interesting because it's a lot harder with Zoom and things. I don't know if anyone else has found this, where you're trying to stick in unison, all things being the exact same, because some of your cameras are slightly different in terms of which is your left and which is your right. And there's so many elements which are added just because of the use of technology.
But also, I guess, new ways that we can view your work. Like you were talking, Sophie, about how your piece that was exploring proximity and perspective, actually we were able to get up on top of the shoulders of your acrobats and see what your performance looked like from up there, or we were able to zoom into a new country and see how they were dancing alongside us, and it's given us perhaps some new lenses to look through, or new ways for people to experience our art form. I wanted to pick up on something that all of you talked about, which was how you ended up meeting sort of new audiences or connecting with new people, sometimes just because you were rehearsing in the park or because you were all of a sudden providing an online class that perhaps you wouldn't have normally connected with that network before, and that being a sort of a surprise positive outcome of this. I guess there's also a question in there about actually how you start to market yourself after this lockdown. How do you start to connect to all those other people? Or have you thought much about who your audience is now, like beyond the lockdown? Has it changed for you?
I think for me, it's made me aware that there are ways that I can connect to some of my friends and colleagues in India. Because Chhaya used to make a lot more work in India, and we used to make smaller portable duet work. But the thing that kept getting in the way was visas and the travel. And there was just a lot of obstacles that came up, and some of our shows got cancelled, which is why I took the work to the UK, rooted us here, and started to build more work based in the UK. But my passion and my interest is really with working with those Indian artists long term. So it's showed that there are different options of working together, and it's reframed what, you know, I've always been looking at physical exchanges. I've never been considering, you know, that there are just little ways of even just touching base to sustain a relationship. You know, it doesn't have to be a mass project online, but it might just be like monthly, like a shared class, a shared chat, a discussion. You know, before I had like Skype downloaded, and I would always be a bit awkward whenever we had to do any, even meetings on Skype. I was like, oh God, this is strange, you know. But now I feel like we're also used to it. Like we've got to take those little benefits from it now and kind of use it as a way to stay connected across cultures, across continents.
Absolutely. I want to pull that conversation through now to a question that's come up from some of our attendees today, which is about what skills you think you might be taking forward post-pandemic, or what out of this sort of adaptable way of working are you going to continue with? I wondered if each person might be able to reflect on that as a question.
I think that question and yours, Suzie, is somewhat interlinked in some ways. You know, we've all developed better empathy skills for people through a screen than perhaps we used to have. So I think that's the thing for me. It's about understanding that you can give people genuine kind of intention and attention through a screen, which perhaps in some ways we didn't think we could do. You know, I was the same as UK, you know, Skype was something that I was like, all right, if I have to. There's also, you know, the learning of the interface is great. The learning of the interface in relation to dance practice is really useful. You know, we've learned how to check in with participants. We've learned how to kind of like be able to teach a class, lead a choreographic process in these spaces. I would counter that though to say that post-pandemic, I'm not going to use the interface for anything other than artist support. My reasoning for that is because the communities that I have connected with through Zoom I think it's my responsibility as an artist leading an organisation to advocate to the Arts Council how engaging with 10 people in a rural community should equate to a similar level of costings to engaging with larger people in a city. And the liveness of that is really important. 10% of the UK don't have access to the internet. It's a lot of people. And a lot of people then in rural communities don't have strong enough internet to can have a conversation like we're having right now. So the idea that, I understand that some people are looking to kind of have a participatory program through that online platform, and I really respect that, but as an artist, I don't really have the stamina for it. I think although there is empathy in this platform, there's not as much as when you're in a room. So I guess my learning has also kind of been, what do you prioritize moving forwards? What's important? What can this format be used to be important? What is essential to be liveness for it to be what you're offering? So for me, participatory work, there is an essential need for it to be live and in a room. Artist development and support, we used a lot of our emergency grant money to lead 58 kind of free one-to-one hour-long consultations with dance artists to support best practice. That is something that I can confidently feel like I can do like this, just in a chat one-to-one with someone. That feels like it's really possible. And even like, practical things like board meetings are possible, and that makes it accessible. It makes the diversity of that, or the representation and makeup of that board, much more possible in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think a sense of what is essential online, what is not essential, and what needs to be prioritized for something else is something that I've taken from it.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else want to comment on things that they're going to take forwards or move forwards with?
Yeah, I also think just in terms of essential life skills is kind of our awareness of mental health, openness, and never making assumptions about people and their circumstance. It's been so interesting. Like, I've connected with colleagues and professionals in a way I have never connected before. We've had conversations about our personal life. We've said when we're not having a good day, because you're in your personal space and it's your workspace. Everything's in there together, and you're having to juggle it all at once. And openness, some people might not want to talk about it, some people might want to talk about it, but the important thing is, never make assumptions that someone's life is easier or somebody, like, everyone has got stuff going on. And I think it's important, to have that awareness and understanding, and give space to people, give space for those, for stillness, for conversations, for listening alongside all this busyness.
That's beautiful.
Here. Absolutely. What about you, Sophie? Anything that you're going to keep working on or take forwards through what you've tried out this lockdown?
Yeah, I really resonate with what you just said, Kay. Actually, that's awesome. I'm actually completing a emotional logic tutor training during this latter part of lockdown, which has been really, really helpful, and something which I'll take forwards in doing a sort of online sessions with people as well. So I think it's great that we do have the possibilities of online platforms. And I ended up using a musician from Australia for my dance solo piece, and we were able to like edit it on Zoom and like watch it as it went. And I think things like that, I wouldn't have been able to use her to create the music in the same way if it hadn't have been locked down, and I was so aware that we could use Zoom and like create it in that way, and that she was happy to work like that. As the thing about the new audiences thing really interested me in terms of the amount of people which are willing just to come up to you if you're in a park doing something. I've like been doing sort of dance and acrobatics pieces like as a soloist and duo and as in group. And people do just walk up to you, they're walking the dog like, oh, that's cool. I like what you're doing there. And they're like, there's a real genuine interest. And I think those people may not pay to go and see a performance, but yet if they see it, they realize that they are interested in it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about sort of outdoor arts and outdoor work, which like is such a big thing that we're doing at the moment. So creating outdoor pieces is something which I want to keep pushing into, because the comments and things that you get from an outdoor audience that don't normally see are incredible. And I think that's great for us sort of expanding our audiences.
Yeah, agreed. The Barbican Theatre are doing lots of that, lots of outdoor work, and we are loving the people that we're coming across and changing what we're putting on and why we're doing it and when we're doing it, you know, to connect with new people, which is, so we're really enjoying that aspect. That's something we're definitely taking forward. Anything anyone wants to add before I ask the next question from our attendees? We're all good. Amazing. So we've got one more question left, and this one's about sort of what you feel. Do you feel, I'm just going to read it, do you feel as though the arts have been somewhat overlooked during the pandemic, and if so, what changes would you like to see moving forwards? You've all talked about, actually, you've had some support from local or regional agencies in terms of sort of funding or professional development, and I know, Richard, you touched on the fact that you want to make sure the Arts Council know live physical participation is important, and in rural areas it's even more important. Is there anything that you would like to take this moment to say and stand on the soapbox and make sure people know is important?
I think that the pandemic, and first of all, I would say that I actually really am kind of very, it's, you know, it feels like it's a job to be critical of parts of the sector, to understand and to immerse ourselves in it, and to also better it with our actions as artists. But ultimately, I would look at something like the Arts Council and say that in a monumentous and hugely challenging position, I think they've done an incredible job at supporting the sector. You know, I've had video calls with officers from the Arts Council where their families have been kind of running in and out of school, and they've still been giving me 110% attention to kind of support me, to support my work and my employees. So that is you know, that's a testament. The Arts Council is run by people, and those people have been managing the same challenges that we have. What I would say is that the investment structure of the national portfolio versus people who receive project grants, whether that's organizations or individuals, the one thing that unifies both of those programs is the fact that freelancers are integral to everyone's goals across audience development, across creative practice, across participatory programs and performance. I would say that the levels of investment towards freelancers and the strategies put in place for freelancer well-being is something that the pandemic has shown has lacked strategy and lacked long-term focus. People have been left behind, or it's shone a light on the fact that some people in the sector are immensely supportive and some people aren't. And both are codependent on each other. So that level of investment is not necessarily right in some ways. So something that I'm thinking a lot about is how we can make different systems to support freelancers, how we can make different systems that perhaps change the game on its head and make ways for pay structures to be different for freelance artists, that make the expectations of work to be different. And that's something that people in our positions have to then lobby to the Arts Council to show them why that's important, to show how our learning from the pandemic has influenced that, I guess. So it's about freelancers for me. It's about people that are making the art and making sure that it's a viable career. You know, venues get people like us to come in and talk about our careers, but the reality is that there have been points in the last 2 years when my career has not been viable. So, and that's reality. You know, that's not something which we were in control of. Lots of people's careers weren't viable in the last couple of years, but we need to look at infrastructure, I think, and not fundamentally change everything, but rejiggle.
Agreed. And actually some of these amazing freelancers that are on this panel are the ones that have been producing the content that people have been able to go and see live in the last few months. You know, perhaps some of the more agile freelancers out there, the ones that have been able to find ways and routes through. All of these panelists today have put work out in the last week or the last couple of weeks, live or on film. It's evidence and a test to say, actually, these are the people that we need to be supporting, because they're the ones that can adapt and be agile and provide something. I think there's also something in looking at new strategies for freelancers to work with different organisations, because now sometimes it's not necessarily a theatre that you're booking through, it's a city council that you're trying to get your work in the shopping centre for, or it's, you know, you're trying to find new spaces for work in, and sometimes there are huge immense challenges in trying to persuade a body that aren't used to running events to put some of your work in there. And it really depends a potluck on who you're talking to and who you're working with, what place you're in, as to whether they can advocate for cultural work or not. So I think that for me, there feels like there needs to be some strategic work around actually finding, sort of building partnerships across lots of different governing bodies and places that dance can be seen in, to help freelancers like yourself to get your work there. Hello, Johnny. Nice to see you. Hello. Welcome to our conversation. It's great to have you here.
Hello. Thank you for having me, and my apologies for the late arrival.
No problem. Busy performing, busy working, which is a good thing in lots of ways. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, Johnny, telling us a little about some of the surprises or challenges you've come across whilst you've been working in lockdown.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Susie. I think I keep having accessibility that keeps going back to my mind. Like, we've been one of the big learnings for us is we've experienced a fraction of what it's like to have access needs by not being able to move, by not being able to travel, by not able to see people or hear or have a bad connection, and also connect with wider communities who have digital poverty and all this kind of different lived experiences. So I think that's just the learning for us was, how can we reach those communities? How can we be even more accessible, more than ever? Even though that's been on the Arts Council strategy for a long time, I think it was an important thing. The surprises was to go with the flow, because the flow was a bit broken into the way we used to do things before lockdown. So go with the flow on who's willing to support, who's willing to extend a hand, who's willing to put some commissions out there, and also what are the audience, the public, the participants, what do they need? There was a real, I think we filled, as a cultural sector, I think we filled a need for connection, a need for amusement, a need for entertainment, a need for beauty, maybe a social need, and also a well-being and wellness need. I think that a lot of us just, we've all done the meditation, Pilates, pro class, and that's how we met. That's why we met during lockdown, and yeah, I think we've all stepped up to fill the need. And I think with the company I'm running, Autin Dance Theatre, we've kind of run with that, and we were like, okay, so different programs just emerged that would never happened if the lockdown or the pandemic hadn't happened. And now we're connecting young people and older people online. So we're having this intergenerational project called Big Brum Boogie, where we're dancing and talking about our experiences around the health messaging that was changing very, very fast, that still is changing. So giving some people some updates, sharing experiences, and moving together and breathing together and connecting mindfully. So that was fun. I don't think I would have ever led a project like this if the pandemic hadn't hit us. So that was a nice little learning. And I don't know, another little surprise, I'm sure you guys have had the same thing, that an introspection, maybe going back in, maybe finding the small movements inside, maybe this morning the going back to what matters and why we're putting work out there. And you mentioned the shopping center. Both Richard and I were in Milton Keynes yesterday in a shopping center, which is an unusual space, I guess. And I feel like the needs for the public or the audience is also to be transported, to forget, to be inspired, and the work maybe that we're all going to put out there in the next few years is beauty and connection and human nature, and feel that, you know, that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get when you experience true, beautiful art. And I think that, yeah, that's kind of what we're doing out there now.
Gorgeous. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for that flurry of lovely images I've got in my head now of hopefully what's coming up for us all in the next couple of years. That brings me on to my last question, which is the $100 question, really, which is, because we're dancers, are we able to think on our feet and think about these things that we've all discussed today better, or are we more prepared to make those changes? I mean, I think that you're all supreme beings, so I agree. I think yes, because you are dancers and because you are trained to think differently often, to be aware of other people in a space, to consider lots of different viewpoints, that makes you as individuals able to perhaps adapt or change and think on your feet in different ways. But I'd like to hear what you think about that statement and whether you agree or disagree.
I'll carry on. I don't know if that was a question for all of us, but that's a good question, and I think that's where our values. That's one of the things that we should value the dance sector or the performing arts sector a lot more. We're adaptable. We're adaptable creatures. We've been given notes, and we've been adapting and changing shows 30 seconds before curtain call throughout our whole career. So we really, I think you're right, Suzie. We do think on our feet. Dance is one of these art forms that will never be perfect ever. So we already know that. So we live in a very imperfect world, and now we're just adapting with it. And I think that's one of our strengths. How many of the freelance collaborators we've all worked with have taken another career, have changed their practice, have just jumped all these hoops to just make a living because we were all struggling, still try to be relevant because that's what we thrive for. I think being a dancer makes us superhuman. I like that.
I think not necessarily even just being a dancer. I think being a creative person, you know, in whatever form that you're creative in. I think obviously lockdown and the pandemic has posed all of these restrictions for us, but then in those restrictions is a framework, and within that it almost sometimes triggers more ideas in bringing the restrictions, rather than, wow, I can do literally anything. Where am I going to start? What am I going to do? It's like, okay, right, here's the challenge. How do we respond to that? And it's almost like a trigger for creativity, I would say.
Any thoughts, Sophie or Richard, on that?
I think there's been a lot of problem solving that's gone on within it, and we're really fortunate that we do something that we love and enjoy. And even if there wasn't like an outcome from something, I think we'd probably still try to do what we love and what we enjoy. Where there's other careers and other things where people may not really love and enjoy what they do, so don't pursue and persist and problem solve in the same way, because there's not that same driving force.
I think I really love people watching. I really love being in a city and watching people walk down the street and go about their business. And something that I've noticed a lot lately is that our ability to be empathetic has heightened in the last couple of years. We understand people's stories, we understand people's circumstances slightly more, because we've all, similar to something that Kay said earlier, which I really resonate with, we've all been more comfortable with explaining how we're doing. I would say that I think everyone from lots of different fields of society have showed superhuman experiences and abilities in the last couple of years. I don't think that's solitary to dancers. I think we have our own unique special sets of skills which make us all individually iconic, and that's great. I would say that because of the shape of the sector pre-pandemic, we were conditioned to be incredibly proactive and incredibly innovative without necessarily realizing what we were doing, just thinking we were playing the game. I think the ability for us to use our practices and our creativity to find meaningful ways to be with people and to share space with people and to listen to people and to transform their experience or our experiences into performance or into a program, whatever it is, that carries something really special and super along with it. So I'd say, no, I don't think we're superhuman in comparison to others. I think everyone has had a superhuman experience. And I think there's a bigger thing within dance where we want to advocate for how the arts and how dance betters society, and to separate ourselves from society to do that is perhaps not the best way to do it. To be fully immersed from the inside outwards to show that we are with them and processing their experiences and our own. And I think the best way to do that is to acknowledge everyone's courage and everyone's durability, and to be with them in praise for everyone, whilst also acknowledging what makes us iconic.
That's beautiful.
Definitely. Some really lovely, wise words, gorgeous discussions that we've had today. Thank you so much to all of you for all of those things. I would like to just to start to sum up, and we're going to obviously make sure Johnny has a chance to slot his information in before he disappears off anyway. So we'll make sure there's time for that, Johnny, don't worry. But before we before we close the discussion, I just wanted to highlight some of the sort of amazing words that have come out of your conversations today, because I think it's really nice to do so. We've talked about connection, we've talked about proximity and perspective, we've talked about journeys and creative paths, we've talked about surprising conversations and interactions, whether online or in person. We've talked about accessibility, and whether that's through sort of finding new ways to access people because of their digital poverty, finding physical places to go and perform work in different spaces to theatres. We've talked about our experience of ourselves as dancers, perhaps having access needs for the first time ever, finding space in our own rooms, houses to dance, or finding restrictive, no access for us to move. We've also talked about the importance of introspection and to go with the flow and sort of the mindfulness of that, and that although perhaps we are not superhumans, we are just as super as everybody else, but I think we have a very good understanding of everybody else, and we have the potential as dancers and as freelancers and as creatives to find meaningful ways for people to connect with each other and to have shared experience. And if there's one thing that we all need in the next couple of years, it's that. And I think that there's a force to be reckoned with for the place shaping agenda that the government are putting out there at the moment, that dance will be a key part of that. And I really, really hope that in 2 years' time I can come back and say, how's it gone, everyone? Panelists, what have you been getting up to? Let's tell everyone about the successes that you've had. And I truly believe that there will be, because you're all wonderful. So thank you for being part of our conversation today and for sharing your experiences. I know they will be reflected and paralleled with many of the people that are watching the masterclass. We are going to close this afternoon's discussion with one key word from each of you. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'd like you just to give me one word that you think sums up how you're feeling right now as someone that is pivoting and shifting in this lockdown groove that we're in. One word. I'm going to go with Richard first.
You know, I'm going to say empathy. Yeah, one word, hard, but empathy.
Hard, yeah, empathy. Let's go.
I'm going to say transformative, which is also what Richard touched on earlier as well. Just so many different kind of transformative moments and how everything's evolved and how each stage is so different from the last. And it's a very unpredictable journey, but now a very welcome, unpredictable, transformative journey.
Sophie?
Expectant.
Like it. Needs no description. Expectant. Johnny?
I'm going to say, in one word, it's hard. I'm going to say authenticity. This, as the world fell apart, or as our world fell apart, I think we've all had a bit of a genuine journey towards our true selves or our true purposes, or things that really matter to us, because everything crumbled. So the only thing we could hold on to was what we believed in, truly, genuinely, with like live or die passion.
Definitely. Yes, yeah, epic. And my word is joy, because it's been an absolute joy speaking to you and seeing your faces. I just want to move with you really soon, all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for today's discussion. And there's lots of other masterclasses online. If you want to speak to other artists or meet other artists, you can email the Barbican Theatre, and we'll make sure all the links that Richard, Johnny, Kay and Sophie have talked about today in their presentations and their chat are part of the YouTube description, so you can get in touch with them. Thank you very much.